There are moments when life feels like walking through a storm, doors keep closing, relationships fall apart, and the peace within starts to fade. Yet many fail to realize they aren't fighting people, circumstances, or bad luck. They are fighting God's plan. When you go against what God ordained, every step feels heavier, every prayer feels delayed, and every season feels confusing. The truth is, sometimes what feels like punishment is simply protection, and sometimes what feels like a loss is actually divine redirection. The question is not whether God has a plan for you, because He does. The real question is, are you resisting it? In this powerful message, we will uncover 5 clear signs you are fighting God's plan, and by the end, you'll know how to surrender your will and let His purpose flow through your life. Proverbs 19 verse 21, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." The illusion of control, when you try to be the author. The first sign that you are fighting God's plan is when you try to control everything, you plan every outcome, you dictate every path, and you become frustrated when things don't go your way. This is not planning, it's pride disguised as responsibility. The Word says in James 4 verses 14 to 15, "You do not know what tomorrow will bring." Instead, you ought to say, "If the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that." When you constantly push against what God is trying to redirect, you're not walking in faith, you're walking in fear. God's plan doesn't need your manipulation, only your trust. True surrender means letting go of control and trusting that even the chaos serves a purpose. When things don't go your way, pause and ask, am I truly following God's direction, or am I forcing my own? Resistance to change, the prison of familiarity. The second sign you're fighting God's plan is resisting change. When God calls you out of something familiar, a job, a relationship, a comfort zone, many cling to what's known because it feels safe, but growth and comfort never coexist. Isaiah 43 verse 19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up, do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." When you resist the new thing God is doing, you close the door to your next blessing. Many prayers go unanswered not because God said no, but because He said move, and you said stay. Every season of transition is uncomfortable, but discomfort is often the language of divine direction. You are not losing stability, you are being repositioned for destiny. Ignoring the inner conviction, the silent voice of the Spirit. The third sign you are fighting God's plan is ignoring the conviction of the Holy Spirit. Conviction is that quiet nudge that says, "This is not right, this path will hurt you," or "Turn around before it's too late." But when you silence that voice, you drift away from divine order. You can't pray for direction and then ignore the compass. John 16 verse 13 says, "But when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all the truth." Conviction isn't condemnation, it's correction born out of love. When you start feeling uneasy in your spirit about something, it's not anxiety, it's alignment trying to take place. Listen when your peace leaves the room. God often withdraws peace when you step outside His plan. Choosing people over purpose, the weight of wrong attachments. The fourth sign you are fighting God's plan is when you prioritize people over purpose. Sometimes the reason God's plan feels blocked is because you're carrying people He never asked you to carry. When God tries to elevate you, He also tries to separate you. 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14 reminds, "Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with unrighteousness?" Many stay in connections that drain their spirit because they fear loneliness, but what looks like rejection is often God's redirection. Every attachment is not divine, some are distractions. The more you cling to those not aligned with your calling, the longer you delay the blessings meant for your next chapter, release who God did not send, or risk missing what He has prepared. Disobedience in the small things, the hidden test of faith. The fifth and final sign you are fighting God's plan is disobedience in small instructions. We often wait for God's grand purpose while ignoring His quiet commands. He says forgive, and you say, I can't. He says rest, and you keep working. He says speak, and you stay silent. Luke 16 verse 10 declares, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." God tests obedience through the small before revealing the great. Every delay, every test, every moment of obedience is preparation for a larger promise. When you neglect the small steps, you stall the bigger plan. The plan of God unfolds one act of obedience at a time. The consequence of resistance, when God's silence speaks. When you fight God's plan long enough, He goes silent, not out of anger, but because you stopped listening. God's silence is not rejection, it's reflection. It's the moment He waits for you to stop wrestling and start resting. Psalm 46 verse 10 says, "Be still, and know that I am God." When you quiet the noise of control, fear, and self-will, divine clarity enters. God doesn't shout over your chaos, He waits for your surrender. And once you submit, what seemed confusing suddenly makes perfect sense. The power of surrender, letting go to receive. Surrendering to God's plan doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. It means trusting that even when things look delayed, they are perfectly timed. Romans 8 verse 28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose." Every detour, heartbreak, and disappointment is part of the design. When you release your timeline and trust His, life starts flowing with divine rhythm. Faith is not control. Faith is rest in motion. How to stop fighting God's plan. 3 steps to realignment. Step 1. Pray for awareness, not outcomes. Ask God to open your spiritual eyes. Many fight divine will because they can't recognize it. Step 2. Obey the last instruction He gave you. You don't need a new direction until you complete the old one. Step 3. Surrender daily, not once, not weekly, but every day. Say, "Lord, not my will, but yours be done. That is where peace begins. The hidden blessing in God's redirection. Sometimes, God closes doors not to punish you but to preserve you. He removes opportunities, not to make you fail, but to make you focus. When you fight His redirection, you prolong pain that could have been purpose. When you surrender, you see what was meant for harm turn into harvest. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 confirms this truth. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. God's plan is never to take from you, it's to transform you. When you let go, the miracle of alignment. The moment you stop fighting and start flowing with God's will, everything changes. You stop chasing what isn't yours, you stop fearing tomorrow, you stop trying to fix what only God can handle. You begin to move with divine rhythm, and blessings start to locate you effortlessly. Your relationships become peaceful, your purpose becomes clear, and your path becomes blessed. Psalm 37 verse 23, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delights in His way. When you let God order your steps, even the storms push you closer to destiny. If you've been feeling stuck, restless, or lost, perhaps it's not because you're off track, but because God is calling you back. Don't fight His plan any longer. Let go of the control, the fear, the doubt, and the people who block your peace. Allow Him to lead, and you'll see blessings flow in ways you never expected. The moment you stop resisting, grace takes over, and grace will always carry you further than effort ever could. Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. If this message spoke to your heart today, don't keep it to yourself. Someone out there is fighting a battle they don't understand. Share this video and let them know, God's plan cannot be stopped. Stay blessed, stay surrendered, and always walk in divine purpose. Subscribe now for more powerful faith messages every week, and let's keep walking in God's timing, not our own.